Hey, this is Farmer Boy. So I've wanted to make this video for a while, but as you can see, all I do is work. Raise my family and priorities and stuff. But I want to elaborate my thoughts on the FAA regulation and the whole deal with the drone pilots flying over airports and everything else. Which fortunately I don't think I'll be affected too much, but the thing of it is, we will all be affected. I don't care how rebel you are, because it will shorten the parts manufacturing and the progress that we've made. As many of you know, ESCs used to be the size of foreign ones. Now they're the size of thumbnails and can handle insane amount of power. Anyways, really what's going on, the bottom line is, nobody saw value in the airspace that we've had for the last 50-some years. And by we, I mean model aircraft, plane flyers, non-remote ID, pre-FPV technology. And now they're seeing the business potential and this drone delivery and everything. There's a commercial demand for the airspace. They want it back. And guess who has the money? They do, as a whole. And that's why we're getting left out at a lot of these negotiations, and we're really being stepped on. And truthfully, eventually, they're going to get what they want, because we don't have the power. We don't have the money. We don't have the income, essentially. But here's why that's a bad idea, even for them. Let's take computers for an example, which I think this is a great example. Computer development, and correct me if I'm wrong, but computer development has been driven by gaming for years. The first overclockers were gamers. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, I just understand this off the top of my head. A lot of the big pushes, you're very rarely going to need a computer or a commercial application for a computer as powerful as gaming rigs, as top-tier gaming rigs are, especially with graphics. And I mean, they really are what developed graphics cards that everybody used to mine with for a while. And so it's been the hobby part of computers that has driven the development. And it's the same thing with drones. So just imagine for a second that they said that these computers are way too powerful. They're building them unregulated. They're modding them. They're unlocked. Basically, these gamers are creating computers that are powerful enough to crack the encryption at the Pentagon, which has been done with an iPod before. And then it's just unsafe because they can hack into medical records, they can hack into government facilities, they can shut down hospitals because these machines are so powerful, even though nobody has, just like nobody's killed anybody with a drone yet. That we just can't have this. We're going to lock down the computers, and you can't buy a computer or build a computer or have a computer that's more powerful than what's in these essential commercial applications. The computer industry would die unless they had a way around it, which to do that on a worldwide scale would be a pretty impressive feat, honestly. But yeah, and it's the same thing with drones. So these guys want our airspace. They want to use the technology we develop and move it forward into delivering packages or same-day shipping or delivering pizzas. I mean, all these things, because it's very practical. When you take the human out of the aircraft, you can save a lot of weight, not just in the human, but in the crashability. And you can make these aircrafts light enough that if it goes down in a suburban area or hits somebody's house, it's not going to kill a whole bunch of people like it has with full-size aircraft. And but by doing that, by just locking us out, it'd be like locking the video gamers out. There wouldn't be any high-end research and development. In any field, the most progress is made from people who are passionate about what they're doing. And I don't know about you, but I can't see as many people passionate about delivering pizza in 5 minutes as I do about flying 100 miles an hour, about racing. I mean, I'm not sure, but I imagine a lot of the huge leaps in car performance is coming from racing. It's coming from the hobbyists that love to tear down engines and build them back up and make them go really fast. Which is, I mean, like the appeal with the Tesla. But the problem really lies with the autopilot, the GPS, not the camera. Cameras have been used on planes for decades too. Like, it's nothing new. I remember as a teenager seeing in the first FPV system that was the size of a penny, and you put it on a car or plane or whatever. I mean, people have used, I mean, look it up. When BMS Webb was like 14, he's on there in the background behind his dad, 3-4 feet tall, while his dad was flying FPV. It's crazy. Hold on, I lost my train of thought for a second. Anyways, it's the GPS, it's the autopilot. Imagine for a second that a 14-year-old or a 36-year-old guy that's never driven an automobile before could go buy a self-driving car, hop behind the wheel, tell it the destination, and it just drove there. So he didn't need a license. He didn't have to buy a license. Didn't have to learn to fly. It flew by itself. There was no reprimand for accidentally hitting the wrong switch in the air. It says, no, you can't hit that switch, you'll crash, and it takes over. And imagine for a second that they run out of cell phone service, or the computer screws up. Now they're on the road for the first time flying by themselves, or they don't know. Nobody's told them that you can't drive 120. The computer lets you program 120, so they do it. They go 120 down the highway or through town. They just didn't require the ability to learn how to drive. And yeah, we have had a few people that never went through the class and started driving, but the penalties come a lot faster, and the penalties come on them because they would crash on the sides they'd run off the road. And so I would put a stipulation that a drone driver's license, actually learn how to fly before you can fly a Mavic. Or have to have all this other software that they're proposing. But I wouldn't draw the line on cameras. I would draw the line on autopilot, any kind of autopilot. But mostly, the most defining aspect is GPS. And I've heard that say before, and it is. If you look at any incident that's happened, you either got a criminal or a GPS. And it's just like gun laws, too. Guess what? You ban all the guns. The only ones with guns are criminals, because criminals don't care about the laws. I mean, look at speeding. Speeders are going to speed. I don't care if you drop that speed limit another 10 miles an hour. They're still going to speed. If they're going to do 120, they don't care if the speed limit's 55 or 85. They're going to drive 120. And so really, the only ones you're affecting are the law-abiding users. And that's why we're seeing a huge decline in FPV pilots. Not to mention, we've kind of just plateaued and a lot of people are burned out. But a lot of people, how is that not taxation without representation? They're going to tax us to turn around and fine us and regulate us. I mean, it's something we don't want, and they're taxing us to deliver it to us. Now, if this was bringing something to the table, like it opening up flying beyond line of sight, or opening up something that's been illegal in the past, it's a different story. But there's really no gain here, and they're not going to stop the criminals. But if you think, oh, this is crazy, I live in Idaho, there's not a freaking cop that even knows what a drone is around me, there's not a cop for 100 miles, this isn't really going to affect me, well, guess what, it will. Because look at just the simple fact that multi-GP was limited to 4S for decades. It's severely limited the amount of parts you can get for more than 4S. And that's really where we're going to see the brunt of it, is this stuff gets regulated just like FPV transmitters. If they were 25 milliwatts only, the part selection is pretty much going to stop right there. If they make it so only approved parts can be put on these planes, there's not going to be a bunch of companies researching and developing, because we will have aliases and just go underground, and there'll be a few pilots that just fly anyways or fly indoors. But without the huge demand for all the law-abiding pilots, the research and development, the development mainly, will come to a halt. So it's going to affect everybody. And like I say, they got the money. Unless these businesses like Pyro and Heli Nation and businesses that, which I'm sure behind the scenes they are, they're probably doing it without advertising everything so that they, because smart people know when to talk. But until there's money makers that are standing up for us, like he who has the coin makes the rules. The bigger guy can break them. It's not right, but it's the way of life. That's my 2 cents. I'm glad you watched to the end. If you liked it, like. If you disliked it, I think dislike, because I think that helps me out too anyways. And subscribe if you want to see more. But take care, guys. Farmer Boy out.